He stood in the cold, rain slipping down his worn coat like it had done 100 times before. His eyes weren't looking at anyone, just the food behind the glass. Too far for a man with empty pockets. Most people passed him without a glance. Some turned away, but not the young man behind the counter. He noticed the way the old man's hands trembled, the way he shifted from foot to foot like he didn't want to be seen, but couldn't leave either. Noah didn't say anything. He reached into his own wallet, pulled out a few crumpled bills, and bought a sandwich and a coffee. Simple, quiet. He stepped outside, held out without a word. The man looked at him, eyes tired but searching. Took the food like he hadn't eaten in days, because maybe he hadn't. A pause. "You remind me of someone," the old man whispered. Noah just nodded. Neither of them knew that a simple meal, handed over without a second thought, was about to rewrite the story of both their lives. Before we dive deeper, ask yourself, how often do we really see the people around us? Not just their faces, but their stories? What would you do if a simple act of kindness could change everything? Noah was just 19, but life had already asked a lot of him. Honest and steady, he had landed his first job at the local gas station, a small place, but enough to keep things moving. Every day, he worked double shifts, morning to night, not for fun, but because his mother was sick. She needed medicine, care, and hope. Noah carried those worries with him, quiet but heavy. His dream wasn't big or flashy. He wanted to save enough money to go to school and learn mechanics, fix engines, build something steady, something reliable. The gas station sat on the edge of town, a crossroads for weary travelers and locals alike. It was a place of brief encounters, but for Noah, it was also a place of responsibility. He wasn't just ringing up snacks. He was holding on to a chance for a better future. Every face that walked in told a story. And sometimes, one of those stories would change his life forever. Mr. Ray was a man marked by the weight of a lifetime few could understand. There was a certain gruffness about him, the kind that came not from anger, but from years of carrying unseen burdens. He moved with the slow caution of someone who had learned to stay alert, always watching, always guarded. But beneath that rough exterior, there was a dignity that refused to be broken. He wasn't a man who asked for much. He carried the scars of war, not just on his body, but deep inside his mind. PTSD had settled in like an unwelcome companion, whispering memories he could never escape, nightmares that haunted his sleep, sudden flashes of fear in the quiet moments. The kind of trauma that changes a man's world long after the battles have ended. But it wasn't just the war that had left its mark. Mr. Ray was estranged from his family, distant and fractured relationships that had slowly slipped away through years of silence and regret. The people who once mattered most had become strangers, a loss he carried as keenly as any wound. For years, he had wandered from town to town, like a shadow drifting with the wind, not by choice, but by necessity, searching for something, maybe peace, maybe a place to belong. The small town where the gas station stood was not where he intended to be. Fate, or perhaps mere chance, had led him here. On any given day, you might find him sitting just outside that station, watching the world go by with tired eyes that had seen too much, not asking for pity, only a moment's grace, a place to rest, even briefly. Because for Mr. Ray, survival wasn't just about getting by. It was about holding on to whatever remained of his honor. Mr. Dalton was a man who carried himself with an air of authority that was hard to miss. Wealthy, successful, and known throughout the town as the owner of the gas station, he was a figure many respected, but few truly knew. He wasn't a man given to small talk or easy smiles. His presence was stern, composed, and carefully guarded, a man who kept his distance, both physically and emotionally. Unlike most owners who might spend their days at their business, Mr. Dalton rarely set foot inside the station. His visits were infrequent and brief, leaving the daily operations to his trusted manager. To outsiders, this seemed a matter of convenience, but there was a deeper reason for his absence, one tied to private pain he carried alone. Years ago, he lost contact with his only son. What started as a small misunderstanding grew into a silence that stretched for years, a gap neither side dared to cross. The estrangement wasn't just a wound in his family. It was a hollow in his heart, a constant ache he hid beneath his cold, disciplined exterior. He buried himself in work, in responsibilities, in wealth, anything to keep the memories from overwhelming him. The success he built around the station was a shield against the loneliness and regret that lurked beneath. But no amount of money or control could erase the uncertainty about his son's fate or ease the sting of unanswered questions. Though he kept his emotions tightly locked away, the loss shaped every decision he made, every interaction he avoided. Mr. Dalton's story was one of strength, but also of deep, silent sorrow. A man who had everything yet felt like he had lost the most important thing of all. The gas station sat quietly on the edge of the small town, a humble building with flickering neon lights and worn asphalt that had seen countless seasons come and go. It was the kind of place that felt familiar to everyone, a steady, reliable fixture in a world that was always shifting around it. This town was small, the kind where everybody knew everybody else's name, where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors watched out for one another without being asked. It was tight-knit in a way that made strangers feel both welcome and exposed all at once. Here, news traveled fast. No secret stayed hidden for long, and every face carried a story, whether joyful or painful. The gas station was more than just a stop for fuel or snacks. It was a crossroads, a hub where lives intersected in brief moments and quiet exchanges. The hum of the vending machines, the beep of the cash register, the rustle of paper bags. These ordinary sounds framed the extraordinary stories unfolding just beneath the surface. Locals came and went, some rushing through their day, others lingering with familiar greetings and small talk. Truck drivers on long hauls, teenagers stealing moments between classes, workers grabbing a quick coffee before heading back to the fields or factories. All converged here. The station was a mirror reflecting the rhythm of the town itself, steady, unassuming, but full of life. In this unremarkable setting, the struggles and hopes of those who passed would quietly weave together. It was a place where a young cashier like Noah could cross paths with a man like Mr. Ray, whose presence seemed out of place but somehow inevitable. And somewhere in the background, the distant shadow of Mr. Dalton's ownership loomed, silent yet influential, shaping the environment and the lives within it. This gas station was a stage for a story about hardship, connection, and unexpected redemption, a story rooted in a community that, despite its small size, held within a capacity for profound change. The moment Noah reached into his pocket and quietly paid for the sandwich, and coffee was simple, but it carried a weight far beyond the price tag. There was no grand gesture, no declaration, just the kind of kindness that slips in unnoticed, the kind that can change a life without anyone realizing at the time. Noah didn't want to thank you. In his mind, it wasn't about reward or recognition. He was just a young man trying to do the right thing in a world that often felt cold and unforgiving. His mother's illness had taught him early on that sometimes the smallest acts mattered most. The extra shift worked, the gentle word spoken, the meal offered to a stranger. As he handed the food to Mr. Ray, the veteran's eyes flickered with something unspoken, something heavy with history, pain, and a long-suppressed hope. Ray didn't say much, but his quiet nod and the faintest curl of a weary smile said more than words ever could. It was gratitude, yes, but also a rare moment of trust from a man who'd learned to carry his burdens alone. Inside Noah's head, 1,000 thoughts raced. He wondered what stories the silence held. He thought about the hands trembling as they accepted the meal, about the weathered face that bore both pride and sorrow. He wanted to say more, to reach out beyond the transaction, but he also knew that sometimes the right thing was simply to be there. You don't have to be alone, Noah whispered softly, more to himself than to Mr. Ray. There was no immediate response, just a quiet presence that seemed to settle between them, like an unspoken promise. A fragile connection forming in the dim light of the gas station, between a young man who saw the worth in another's struggle and a veteran whose walls were beginning, ever so slightly, to crack. This was a beginning, not just of a friendship, but of something that would ripple through their lives and the entire community in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The simple act of kindness that day was a spark, the first thread woven into a tapestry of healing, trust, and unexpected family. Noah's days began early and ended late. each one a steady rhythm of responsibility and quiet determination. Behind the counter of the gas station, he greeted every customer with a genuine smile, his eyes reflecting a kindness that felt rare in a place often overlooked. He scanned groceries, filled coffee cups, and offered a friendly word to the regulars, always patient, always present. But beneath that calm exterior was a young man carrying more than his share of burdens. After his shift, Noah walked the worn path home through the narrow streets of the small town, the weight of exhaustion pulling at his shoulders. The evening air was often cool, but he barely noticed. His mind was focused on one thing: his mother at their modest house. Noah moved quietly, careful not to disturb her rest. He checked her medications, prepared simple meals, and sat with her through the long nights when pain or worry made sleep impossible. His gentle care was a steady anchor in her fragile world, and in return, she gave him strength, the kind of quiet encouragement that helped him face each day. There were moments when the struggle felt overwhelming. The bills piled up, the future seemed uncertain, and the dream of studying mechanics to build a better life felt distant. But Noah's kindness never wavered. It was woven into everything he did, from the way he treated strangers like Mr. Ray to the sacrifices he made for his family. This routine, hard, humbling, but filled with purpose, was Noah's world. And in it, small acts of compassion weren't just gestures. They were lifelines, threads connecting him to others, even when life seemed determined to pull him under. The very next day, Ray returned. He didn't say much, just found his usual spot outside the gas station, sitting quietly on the worn bench by the entrance. His eyes held a tired kind of watchfulness, like a man used to being invisible, but somehow still alert to everything around him. Noah noticed right away. After closing time, when the last customer had left and the day had settled into silence, he slipped out the back door with a small paper bag in his hand. Inside were leftovers from the day's sandwiches, simple food, but enough to fill a hollow stomach. He left it on the bench near Ray's worn shoes before slipping back inside, hoping the veteran would find some comfort in the gesture. But it wasn't just food. Over the following nights, Noah quietly gathered little things: bottled water, a fresh pair of socks, a steaming cup of coffee wrapped carefully so it wouldn't spill. Each item was placed just out of sight, as if trying not to disturb the quiet dignity Ray carried with him. The small acts were Noah's way of reaching out, a silent promise that someone cared, even if words weren't exchanged. Ray accepted these gifts with a nod or a quiet glance, never speaking of his past or his pain, but his eyes softened just a little each time Noah showed up with something new. In this small town, under the flickering light of the gas station sign, a fragile connection was beginning to form, a bond built on kindness, trust, and the unspoken understanding of two lives crossing paths in the most unexpected way. Slowly, the silence between them began to break. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned a soft orange, Ray looked up from the bench where he sat and spoke for the first time since Noah had started leaving him those small gifts. "You're good to me, kid," he said quietly, his voice rough but sincere. Noah smiled, pulled up a chair beside him, and nodded. They began to talk, not all at once, but in small pieces. Ray shared fragments of his story: the war, the battles he fought both abroad, and inside his own mind, the family he lost touch with long ago. His words carried the weight of years filled with regret, of moments missed and words left unspoken. Noah listened carefully, his eyes steady and kind. Then, when it was his turn, he told Ray about his own life, working double shift to help care for his sick mother, his dream of one day becoming a mechanic, and the hope that kept him going even on the hardest days. As their conversations deepened, Ray spoke of a son he hadn't seen in decades. The pain of separation was raw, buried beneath layers of silence and shame. Noah could sense the old wounds beneath the gruff exterior, wounds that time hadn't healed, only hidden. In that quiet space outside the gas station, two very different lives began to weave together, stitched by shared dreams, hidden regrets, and the simple need to be seen and understood. Each conversation chipped away at the distance between them, opening a door neither expected to find. Hat night, just as the gas station's fluorescent lights hummed low and the evening crowd thinned, a tense moment unfolded. Noah was stacking shelves, quietly finishing his shift, when a man stumbled to the door, Slurred words, aggressive steps, and a gaze that flickered with menace. The drunk customer began to berate Noah over a minor mistake, loud enough to draw the attention of the few remaining patrons. Noah's calm, steady replies did little to soothe the man's anger. The words escalated, insults flying thick and fast. The situation teetered on the edge of something dangerous. Just as the man's voice rose, hands twitching toward Noah, a figure stepped forward, Ray. She remembered birthdays missed, calls unanswered, the excuses that piled up until her name was no longer spoken. The ache of abandonment was raw and sharp, a wound that sometimes threatened to pull her under. Yet, those painful memories after months of hard work, healing, and transformation, Agnes stood in the small, sunlit office of the tutoring center, now a beacon of hope for so many. Today wasn't just about celebrating success. It was about family, in its truest sense. With a gentle smile, Agnes signed the final papers. She was officially adopting Lena and Malik, making their bond unbreakable in the eyes of the law. No longer just strangers who had saved her. They were now her chosen family, bound by love, trust, and shared dreams. Lena wiped away tears as Malik hugged Agnes tightly. The room was filled with quiet joy, years of loneliness and pain melting into moments of belonging and promise. Meanwhile, Agnes' own children, humbled and changed by everything, approached her with tentative hope. Their voices trembled as they asked for forgiveness, recognizing the years of absence and neglect. Agnes listened patiently, her heart softening but her spirit strong. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "But forgiveness is just the first step. Actions will show me who you really are now." Slowly, they began to rebuild their fractured relationship, learning to respect boundaries and appreciate the strength Agnes had found beyond them. Not far away, Malik's journey was blossoming as well. With Agnes' encouragement and tutoring, he had blossomed academically despite the challenges dyslexia posed. He recently received a scholarship to a prestigious school, a dream once thought impossible. At a school award ceremony, Malik credited Miss Agnes, his teacher and grandmother, as the driving force behind his success. His words were heartfelt, a testament to the power of love, guidance, and second chances. The family had come full circle, from abandonment and despair to healing, redemption, and hope. Agnes' legacy was no longer just about survival. It was about flourishing through kindness and courage. Rise fueled her resolve. She refused to be defined by the coldness of her children's neglect. Instead, she poured her heart into every child who walked through the tutoring center's doors, children who needed a champion, someone who believed in them when no one else did. With every success story, Agnes felt herself rise from the ashes of her past. The teacher grandma was no longer just a nickname. It was a testament to strength, compassion, and the power of redemption. Her life, once marked by loss and loneliness, was now a living example that love and purpose could be found even in the darkest moments. And as the community rallied around her, Agnes quietly prepared for the next step in her plan, a step that would bring her face to face with the past she thought she'd left behind. For Agnes, redemption wasn't just about healing herself. It was about reclaiming her story, rewriting her legacy, and showing the world and her children that she was more than forgotten. She was unstoppable. The buzz around Agnes and the tutoring center had grown beyond the small neighborhood. One quiet afternoon, as Agnes was preparing lesson plans, her phone buzzed incessantly. Messages, missed calls, notifications. Her children had seen the news. The viral story of the teacher grandma had reached them, stirring a mix of shock, guilt, and embarrassment. They hadn't expected their mother, whom they had so easily cast aside, to become a local hero. Tentatively, one by one, they reached out. The first call came from her eldest son, his voice trembling, uncertain. "Mom, I saw the news. I don't know what to say." Then came messages from the others, awkward apologies and hesitant requests to meet. Agnes's heart twisted. After years of silence, after feeling abandoned and forgotten, they were suddenly knocking on her door, unsure, perhaps desperate. When they finally came to see her, the reunion was heavy with unspoken words. Her children looked at her with eyes full of regret and confusion, searching for a way to mend the damage. But Agnes did not lash out in anger. Instead, she stood steady, her voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of years spent waiting for them to show up. "Where were you when I needed you?" she asked, her words steady but not cruel. The question hung in the air like a fragile thread, a reminder of every birthday missed, every lonely night, every promise broken. Her children shuffled, unable to answer, faces flushed with shame. Yet Agnes did not close the door. She offered forgiveness, but not without boundaries. She explained that love could not be demanded, and trust could not be rebuilt overnight. "I forgive you," she said gently, "but forgiveness means little if actions don't follow. I am not the same woman you left behind." She invited them to witness the opening of the tutoring center, to see the life she had rebuilt, not for them, but for herself and the children who needed her now. "If you want to be part of this new chapter," she added quietly, "you must be willing to change and show up, not just with words, but with your hearts." Her children left with heavy steps, but a flicker of hope. Agnes stood by the window, watching them go, knowing that the true test of their return had only just begun. She had given them a chance, not for her sake, but for the chance of healing what had long been broken. And this time, she would not be left waiting in the silence. The day of the tutoring center's grand opening had finally arrived. A modest crowd gathered in front of the freshly painted building, a symbol of hope, resilience, and new beginnings. Agnes stood at the podium, her hands slightly trembling but her voice steady, carrying the strength forged from years of heartache and healing. She looked out at the faces before her, the children she would help, the neighbors who had supported her, and the strangers who had become family. Her gaze then found Lena and Malik standing proudly by her side, their smiles warm and encouraging. And there, near the back, she spotted her children, eyes glistening with tears, silent witnesses to the woman they once abandoned. Taking a deep breath, Agnes began to speak, her words weaving to the quiet air like a powerful, tender melody. "Kindness doesn't come from blood," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "It doesn't come from obligation or from ties we are born into." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "Kindness comes from choice, from the choice to care, to show up, to stand by someone when the world turns its back. Those who saved me," Agnes continued, gesturing to Lena and Malik, "chose kindness. They didn't have to, yet they did. They taught me that family is more than genetics. It's love in action." Her voice grew stronger, filled with the fierce compassion of a woman who had been broken but rebuilt stronger than ever. "To those who walk through these doors, whether young or old, forgotten or forgotten no longer, know this. Here, you'll find patience, understanding, and a second chance." Her children listened, tears streaming freely down their cheeks, their hearts opening in a way words alone could not express. Agnes looked at them with quiet forgiveness, but also with the unmistakable message that true love must be earned every day. As the applause swelled, Lena reached out and squeezed Agnes's hand, Malik's eyes shining with pride. This moment was more than the opening of a center. It was a triumph of humanity, the power of choice over circumstance. And as the crowd began to disperse, many approached Agnes with hugs, thanks, and promises to help. She smiled through her tears, knowing that kindness had indeed found its home. And this time, it would never be abandoned again. After months of hard work, healing, and transformation, Agnes stood in the small, sunlit office of the tutoring center, now a beacon of hope for so many. Today wasn't just about celebrating success. It was about family in its truest sense. With a gentle smile, Agnes signed the final papers. She was officially adopting Lena and Malik, making their bond unbreakable in the eyes of the law. No longer just strangers who had saved her. They were now her chosen family, bound by love, trust, and shared dreams. Lena wiped away tears as Malik hugged Agnes tightly. The room was filled with quiet joy, years of loneliness and pain melting into moments of belonging and promise. Meanwhile, Agnes' own children, humbled and changed by everything, approached her with tentative hope. Their voices trembled as they asked for forgiveness, recognizing the years of absence and neglect. Agnes listened patiently, her heart softening but her spirit strong. "I forgive you," she said quietly, "but forgiveness is just the first step. Actions will show me who you really are now." Slowly, they began to rebuild their fractured relationship, learning to respect boundaries and appreciate the strength Agnes had found beyond them. Not far away, Malik's journey was blossoming as well. With Agnes' encouragement and tutoring, he had blossomed academically despite the challenges dyslexia posed. He recently received a scholarship to a prestigious school, a dream once thought impossible. At a school award ceremony, Malik credited Miss Agnes, his teacher and grandmother, as the driving force behind his success. His words were heartfelt, a testament to the power of love, guidance, and second chances. The family had come full circle, from abandonment and despair to healing, redemption, and hope. Agnes' legacy was no longer just about survival. It was about flourishing through kindness and courage. As the sun set on the bustling city outside, Agnes sat quietly in her favorite chair at home, reflecting on the journey that had reshaped her life. Her voice, calm yet compelling, reached out beyond the walls of her home, carrying a message for everyone who might be listening. Life will test us in ways we never imagined, she began. Sometimes those we expect to stand by us walk away. But we must remember, our worth is never defined by abandonment or betrayal. Kindness can come from the most unexpected places, and it is always a choice we make. It's not blood that makes a family, but love, respect, and the willingness to stand for each other. She paused, her eyes glistening with tears of both sorrow and hope. To anyone watching this story, whether you feel alone, forgotten, or lost, know that there is always a chance to start over, to build something new, to find family where you least expect it. Never be afraid to reach out, to forgive and to love, even when it feels impossible, because in kindness we find our true strength. Her words lingered softly in the air, a warm embrace for the brokenhearted and a beacon of hope for those still searching. The screen slowly faded to black, leaving behind the enduring truth of Agnes' journey, one of loss, love, and the extraordinary power of the human spirit to heal and rise again. Agnes stands quietly in the center's garden, sunlight filtering through the trees as children laugh and play all around her. Her face, serene and full of gratitude, reflects a journey from loneliness to belonging. Her voice, gentle but unwavering, carries the weight of everything she has endured and learned. You don't get to choose your family, but sometimes family chooses you. She looks around at the smiling faces, at the bonds forged not by blood, but by kindness and care. Never underestimate the power of a stranger's love. Her words hang in the air, a reminder that compassion can transform lives, heal wounds, and create new beginnings where hope seemed lost. And with that, the story closes, not with an ending, but with an invitation to open your heart, to reach out, and to believe in the unexpected strength of human connection.